Hello, everyone. Now it's games time. If you didn't watch the animation tier list that I posted just before this, that's totally fine. But there's a couple things I will say. My Your Turn to Die recording, I updated OBS finally because I was sick of my chat not working on stream. And, well, it messed a couple things up, apparently. So I lost a bunch of time and now I have to replay a section again to get to where I need to be to record stuff. Thankfully, I didn't really get to anything too crazy, but, I just wasn't feeling up to it. So instead we're going to do this, which is a little bit less effortful. And I was going to do it anyway because, I do it every year. At this point. This is the third year, so, hey. This year in games. I don't know if this is lighter. I think this is about average to the usual amount of games I have on here. I was going to put the Great Ace Attorney on here because technically I did play some of it this year, but not very much. So we're just going to save that for when I eventually get to pick it up again. But yeah, it's time to rank games. I'm hoping this Cuphead music is fine to play in the background. I'm imagining it is because it's from a video game. It just feels almost too real. You know what I mean? Anyway. So, 10 games. A few of them I'm going to have very little to say about, but a lot of them I'm going to have a lot to say about. So, let's start with the heavy hitter this year, for the channel, anyway, which was Danganronpa Another One. I'll put this in B tier. This is maybe a little bit of bias because I really like Straw 2, which is its sequel, of course. But, the gameplay is a bit whatever, and there's a lot in the story that is just fine. And there's like one, which trial is it? Oh, the I almost said Keiji, because I was playing Your Turn to Die 3 seconds ago. Not Keiji, Kinji. The Kinji chapter specifically irked me because it just didn't make sense to me. But chapter 2 isn't that good either. Chapter 1 is pretty basic. The later chapters are definitely better, and I really like a couple of the characters. Tsurugi is very good in this game. And I genuinely like the Utsuro stuff. So I won't say it's bad, but it is mid, okay? It's mid. I'll say it that way. I had a lot of fun with it, obviously, but I can't say it was the best game I played this year. Certainly not. I'm going to save this one for later, too. Let's start with the second thing, which is Project Eden's Garden. This was probably the biggest surprise because I wasn't really following it on Twitter because I didn't want to see the characters at all. I wanted to guess at their ultimate talents, all this stuff. So I had no idea it was coming out this year even, with a demo, essentially. And, the demo, very fun. And shows a lot of promise for the future of this game. I just did 2 tier lists on it and all 3 episodes, so if you want to see me react to that and you haven't seen it yet, you can go check that out. I'm going to put it in A, I guess. For what it is, it's perfectly good. And it's made me realize a couple of things I need to do for my own Danganronpa. I'm not like plot points, specifically mechanical things that I would need to do. But yeah, I think that's the most astonishing thing to me with Eden's Garden that really made me think about Danganronpa fan games is that Eden's Garden feels gameplay-wise like Danganronpa, which is insane to me. And that along with Redemption has led me to maybe make a choice, but we'll see. Let's talk about Redemption 2, and then we'll talk about everything else. These are the things people are here for, right? I had a lot of problems with Redemption. Honestly, I feel like... Yeah, maybe. Because when I really think about it, I think these two have the same strengths and weaknesses to them, which is some really compelling story beats and a couple of characters that I really enjoyed. But on a grand scale, is the story good? And take this with a grain of salt, because this is coming from the guy who thinks Danganronpa 2 has the worst overall trials. Because other than the last one, the first one, and Trial 5, the rest of them are not very good, in my opinion. So I feel like these somewhat have the same issue, except they don't really hit the same highs that Danganronpa 2 does, you know? Danganronpa Redemption, I know I've talked endlessly about the problems I've had with this game, or this story, I suppose. The main thing is just not enough time, really. If we got a little bit more time in the daily life segments to really flesh out the characters, I think it could have been a contender for best game of the year, but unfortunately not. And I really care about character writing. So that's why I like Danganronpa Another so much, because there is a couple really strong characters in there that I really like that I already named. But I have to be fair, and these two feel very similar in the case of having some whatever not very good trials, some characters that don't get to do anything, but some really interesting plot beats near the end, and a couple of really strong characters that I really liked. So, yeah. Rough year for Danganronpa, apparently. see if next year is anything different. I don't even know what I'm going to do next in Danganronpa Alex. We'll see. But now we get to the stuff that I played off stream, and also just stuff that isn't Danganronpa. So let's start with Worldbox. I played this game for the first time this year because I saw a YouTube video playing it, and it looked really fun. Unfortunately, the premise of the game is not quite lived up to. So essentially what this game is you have a map, and then you can drop a bunch of stuff on it. Resources, animals, plant life. And you can terraform the land, and then you just put people on it, and you watch as their societies develop, and like rebellions happen, and they fight each other. All that stuff. The problem I have with it's predictable. So the whole point of it seems like there's no point. Societies develop in extremely predictable ways, no matter what terrain you put them on. Either they just die, or they develop in the same way. And the 4 races in the game, you have orcs, elves, humans, and dwarves. Orcs automatically basically win every time, because they reproduce really fast and they're very aggressive, so they just kill off the other races before they even have a chance. Dwarves are completely useless, because they reproduce very slowly because they live very long lives, and they're made to the idea of them is they're hardy, right? Because that's what dwarves are known for. But in reality, because they reproduce so little, they just die. Humans are pretty balanced, and the elves are okay, but they've got a little bit of orcish problems because they also live long lives. So basically what this what this game essentially becomes is you just either put a bunch of humans on the map and then watch them predictably develop, or you put all 4 of the races on and are let's see who wins, and the orcs win every time. I do think this game could be really good, but it definitely needs some balance changes in order to make itself actually interesting, And so far it seems like most of the updates are just adding more things, which is cool, but doesn't really fix the problem I have with the game, which is that the same thing happens every time. Even if I put a freaking snowman on the map that shoots snowballs, it doesn't really change anything, At least nothing amazing. To be fair, I'm comparing this to stuff like RimWorld and The Sims, other simulation games where, depending on your choices, the game can feel drastically different. And Worldbox just isn't like that. And so I don't really see a point in paying I think $20 for it. It feels like an app. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Multiverses. This is tough. This is really tough. I really believed in multiverses, and I still do. The game is pretty fun when it's working. I happen to be in a place where the game does work pretty well online. But for a lot, like half of North America, and I imagine it's even worse outside of North America, the game runs very poorly. I've seen the game run very poorly online. There's so much lag. And I've been lagged to death multiple times when I've played multiverses as well, where you just like, you're jumping and then suddenly you're like being dragged into the blast zone by an invisible hand. It's like, no, please. After playing Marvel Snap, the progression system in this game for like skins and levels feels so slow. It feels just like a grind. And I don't think it's actually that bad compared to its contemporaries in this sort of a free-to-play area. But, oh boy. I don't even know if you earn premium currency over time. Do you? I don't even remember. I don't think you do. So the only way to get skins, really, is to buy them with real money. And a lot of the purchases are exorbitant, like a lot. There's no shop in the game. Maybe there is now, but when I stopped playing, there wasn't even a shop, so you couldn't even look at what was available. And the characters that they rolled out, this was part of the problem. You need currency to unlock new characters. And when they rolled out the new characters, they were always, other than LeBron James, ironically, they were always better than the rest of the cast, it felt like. Like at a top level, I think Bugs Bunny, at least when I stopped playing, was still the best character in the game. But when they rolled out Morty and then they rolled out Rick from Rick and Morty, crazy, they both just felt very polarizing. Like if there was one of them in a game, that team had a big advantage. And of course you had to pay for them with gems. So if you didn't have gems stored up from winning matches, then it essentially just made it so that people who paid more got a way better chance of winning. And yeah, it got a little sad for me. All of that combined, you know? It just didn't feel like there was anything worth working to, and at the same time, sometimes the game just didn't work, so it wasn't that fun to just casually play either. I'm hoping that this game will have a second wind when they fix a lot of these problems, but something that's really kind of annoying that I haven't touched on yet is that this game constantly gets patched, right? Because they're constantly working into like a full, it's not even like done really, the game. So they're constantly adding stuff, right? Whether it be a new character or balance changes. And a lot of the time the balance changes are so weird. Like some of them are deserved. And then sometimes, like I was playing Batman, right? If you watch the like 2 streams I did of this, they've changed Batman so many times to de-incentivize you from using Batarang. And then they're like, okay, well, you can use Batarang a little bit more now. Batarang's stronger, but now you have to wait more time between each use of it. Now it's weaker, so there's like less reason to use it at all. And just recently I heard that they nerfed the grapple. So it's like, at that point, just change his moves. Like, you know? If Batarang is such a problem, then just change the way it works fundamentally. Like, if you have to patch it, if you have to change it during every patch. Because it just made playing Batman not fun. Because you're essentially, the character that I like to play is now not in the game anymore. And the version they have, if I learn him in another month or so, he'll be completely different again. Or he'll feel different. So I don't know. It might have just been because the character I was playing was a problem character. In terms of being annoying online. But I can't help that. It's just the character that feels right to me, man. I played Batman since day one when everybody said he was the worst character in the game. Anyway, that's enough on multiverses. Let's talk about another free-to-play game that I have much more positive things to say about, which is Marvel Snap. Did I expect this game to be this good? No. When I heard about it, I was like, oh, they're doing another Marvel card game. Guilty flag on lore time. When I was like 13, there was a Marvel card game on the App Store that I got into. And it was definitely not as good as this, for one. Oh, the music changed. I don't think I like this one. Give me 1 second here. Okay, there we go. We'll do the shop music. I didn't expect Marvel Snap to be anything special. I thought I might like it, but I didn't expect it to actually be good. And you know what? I was proven wrong. So essentially, the way this game works is there's a few very predictable specific archetypes that your deck can be. So instead of having a bunch of archetypes, the game instead has 3 playing fields that are randomized each game. So instead of each game feeling the same because you're saying the same deck over and over, it feels totally different because of random areas showing up. So here's an example, right? You can see Deadpool on the front of that image. One of the decks that I've recently been having a lot of fun with is a Deadpool deck where you buff up Deadpool, and when Deadpool is destroyed, he returns to your hand with double power. So you get this super powerful cheap card. And depending on the 3 different locations that show up during a game that you can play cards to, that strategy can either be really good, like say a location shows up that doubles the power of cards you play there. Suddenly Deadpool is way easier to get to a super high power. But it could also be really bad. Like there's a location that stops cards from being destroyed. That's not that great for a strategy like this. So obviously sometimes you just get screwed over by the locations, and that doesn't feel great. But the good thing about this game is that the games are really quick, so even if you get screwed over, you spent 6 minutes or something. 6 to 10 minutes. So it doesn't feel like that big of a loss, you know? And you can always just press the retreat button if you don't want to deal with something and lose 1 little cube, which is how you level up. If you win, you get 2 or up to 8, depending on the gambling mechanic from the game. But the thing that I really like about this game, aside from the actual gameplay, which is solid, is that not only is the gameplay solid, but the free-to-play aspects aren't obnoxious. They're starting to get a little more obnoxious, so I'm hoping that we can maybe tone that down a bit. But essentially what the paid users of the app get is cool variants most of the time, which is just cards with more interesting art on them. They can get more currency, but you earn the currency through playing the game pretty quickly, other than one thing, but we'll get there in a second. So it's not even that big of a deal. Most of the currency you get an abundance of through just playing the game. I haven't run out of credits, which is what you use to upgrade cards, in months. I've been sitting at 2,000 of them because your cards, as you get farther along, the cards you use the most, it takes longer to upgrade them. So when you do get to upgrade them, you get 8 points on the ladder at a time of your upgrade collection. And it feels really good despite the fact that you haven't really updated a card in a while, you know? The one thing that's annoying, okay, the way they release new cards right now is not good. So far they've released 2 new cards that really annoyed me. Those being Black Panther, which was a little bit less annoying. Basically what Black Panther does is he doubles his own power when he's revealed, so when you play him. Which you can obviously game by making him reveal again, putting him back in your hand, or by buffing him up and then cloning him to 2 other locations where he reveals again and you get 64 power and it's broken. That one wasn't so bad because I felt like not as many people were abusing it. But the one they've recently released, which is Silver Surfer, whose ability is to essentially buff every card on your field that had 3 cost. That one feels kind of bad. He gives all your 3-cost cards 3 points. And it just so happens that a lot of 3-cost cards have pretty good effects. So the way they're usually balanced is they don't have that much power, right? But now, because of Silver Surfer, they can have up to like 11 power each. And it basically just relies on you guessing which lane your opponent's going to play Silver Surfer in, so you can shut it down with a card that counters that. So that doesn't feel super great as someone who doesn't pay for the game, or doesn't like want to pay $14 for the premium pass to get Silver Surfer. But other than that, there's not a lot I can really complain about. The meta right now, some people don't like because it there's a couple cards in it, which is Leader and who's the other one? Leech. I haven't seen Leech in quite a while. People were complaining about Leech a lot, but I haven't seen him in a while. He's like just kind of lost relevance with Silver Surfer coming out. And then Leader's still annoying, but I do think he's inconsistent enough where it's not that bad. He basically copies all the cards you play on the turn your opponent plays Leader to their side of the field as well. So it's like a net loss for you because they got 4 power from Leader and also everything you played. It's annoying for sure, but I don't think it's like that bad. It just feels bad to lose to, right? Which is why people hate it. But yeah, it's honestly a very fun game. If you like Marvel at all or superheroes, and you want to play a simple but fun card game, you can just play for like 20 minutes and then set it down. It's a good game. I recommend. Now we got to talk about the 3, I guess, AAA. I guess this is AAA as well. But the AAA experiences I played this year. Which, 2 Pokemon games and Cuphead. Let's rank Pokemon, because it's pretty easy. Legends Arceus is an A for me. Scarlet and Violet's a B. Legends Arceus was such a breath of fresh air. I didn't even really dislike Sword and Shield. I still don't. But when Legends Arceus came out, you could really feel a difference. They were really going crazy with trying new things. And it's really fun to run around the Pokemon world where the Pokemon are trying to kill you. Surprisingly so. The game's not too long either, which I think is important because it could have gotten... That's Scarlet and Violet's problem for me, I'm going to be honest. Legends Arceus wasn't super long. There were 4 areas and then a final boss. 5 areas? Because there's the original, there's the swamp, the beach, the mountain, and the tundra. So yeah, 5 areas. With a boss in each and then the final boss, and that's it. And I'm someone who enjoys catching Pokemon, especially in the way this game does it, where you get bonuses for sneaking up on Pokemon, and you craft your own Pokeballs, so you get to be prepared to catch Pokemon the way you like. Shiny hunting in this game, really fun. They make a sound, which is... Scarlet and Violet really needed that sound. When they show up on the map, they make a bling sound so you can be like, oh, a shiny, and look around for it, and it's still sort of intense. Whereas in Scarlet and Violet, it's like there's a shiny that just randomly spawns on the map, and you see it, and you're like, is that a shiny? And you're like, oh, it is. And then you run into it, and you're like, hey, nice, I got one. In Legends Arceus, it feels much more special, I guess. Like your heart goes like, oh, I gotta play this carefully. Whereas in Scarlet and Violet, for the most part, there are some shiny hunts in that game where it's like, is that? Like, oh god. The ones that run really fast, for example. I emphasize the shiny hunting thing because that's something I really like to do in a Pokemon game. The reason Scarlet and Violet is in B tier, whereas Arceus is in A tier, is because I had fun with every part of Arceus. And with Scarlet and Violet, the final battles in the Team Star bases are fun. because they're actually challenging. At least they were for me, who was playing a stupid challenge. But the grind to just, like, kill a bunch of grunt Pokemon to get there is nothing. Like, why? It's nothing. I'm glad they at least don't make you fight them, like, one at a time, but still. It's just boring, and it lags the game out. The gyms were mostly okay, but, like, nothing special. And the Titans were generally pretty good. And then the end game of Scarlet and Violet is, like, the best Pokemon end game since Black and White. Wow. I like Sun and Moon's end game as well. But the actual, like, it's not actually the end of the game. You know what I mean? In Sun and Moon, the part that I really like is the evil team thing, where you face off against evil parasite Lusamine. But in Scarlet and Violet, they save it for, like, the very end of the game, and it feels very climactic. And the music is crazy. It's written by Toby Fox. And they save the cool new Pokemon forms for the very end of the game. Honestly, probably worth playing just for that, because the rest of the game is fun enough as is. The world is expansive, which I do enjoy. And yeah, it's pretty fun. But I also like a lot of the new Pokemon. That's what I was going to say. It's pretty fun, but I do think Legends Arceus I probably would play again. I don't know if I'd play through all of Pokemon Scarlet again. It just feels like so much, you know? Although maybe I guess if I wasn't, like, training a new team for every challenge, it might not feel so long. But I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. So, hey, just so I don't get comments about it, I know that Scarlet and Violet are broken. While I was doing this segment, that's just, like, the only thing anybody ever talks about with this game, so I felt like, it's played out, I don't need to say anything on it. But honestly, the only thing that really bugged me, there were, like, two annoyances, right? Because a lot of the stuff you've seen on Twitter, if you've never played the game, is stuff that either happens in the multiplayer mode, because somebody's, like, lagging out, or like, it doesn't happen on their end. It only happens, like, you're seeing them, like, animate weirdly. Which is very funny, and it's not game-breaking, so I don't really care about it. The two things that really annoyed me were the camera glitches, where the camera lags behind you while you're dashing sometimes. And sometimes it goes through the floor, which is just annoying. And two, there's a couple of crashes that can happen, because when the game loads the map after you come out of the one main city, there's a memory leak, apparently. Apparently that's where it comes from. So the longer you play the game after that without saving and quitting, the more that builds up, and then eventually it crashes, right? But there's still some pretty, like, framey areas in the mine, and what's the other one? There's definitely another one. The desert when it's sandstorming, I think? That might have just been when I was streaming. Anyway, it's definitely not perfect in terms of performance. But in general, other than, like, saving and quitting after leaving that main city, which is annoying, but not the worst thing in the world, it's, like, the bugs aren't game-breaking, really. So it's not, like, a huge detractor for me, like it was with Multiverses, for example, where it literally stops you from playing the game at all. But it is a point that should be brought up, even though everybody's already talked about it. So there you go. On to the Cuphead DLC. Cuphead's Delicious Last Course. That was this year. Remember that? And be honest, I wasn't really that big of a fan of the original Cuphead. I think the first two levels of the original Cuphead, like the first two maps, are really fun. Like, challenging enough, but not, like, to the point where they feel bad. The third island, specifically the robot, the train, who's the other one? The robot, the train, and the bee. All three of those aren't fun. They're just not fun. And it really killed my excitement of the game to the point where I dropped it and didn't pick it up again. But the Delicious Last Course changes that, for one, because it gives you a new playable character, which has a bunch of new abilities that make the more bullshit bosses a bit more doable. And the entire new world is good. Like, I know these bosses are like hard that are on that one, specifically the dog plane. I guess you could call it a dog fight. Specifically that one, and what was the other one that I struggled with a lot? There was one more in there that was pretty brutal. I mean, Saltbaker is pretty hard, but not super intense. Like, you felt like the devil, where it was like, okay, this is doable after a while. Which I did actually make it through all the bosses this time, with the introduction of Miss Chalice. I really do think that was a good idea. I know people are like, hard games shouldn't have to include accessibility or easy mode or whatever. But I'm just not good at platformers. That's something that I can't change about myself. I've never been good at platformers. I blame my foundational platform experience being Sonic the Hedgehog 1 on the Game Boy Advance. But I've just never been good at them. So a super hard platformer, not going to do it for me. And that's why I appreciate games like Celeste and also the Delicious Last Course for including a way for people to get through the game, maybe, that aren't quite as adept at platforming. Because I just don't have the reaction time for it. I just don't. I'm a visual novel player. Like, come on. Look at these games. Other than Multiverses and I guess Legends Arceus. Everything is turn-based, a visual novel, or not even a game. So, like, come on. But I really enjoyed Delicious Last Course. And the art, as always, is great, and the music is also very good. So, definitely worth a shot, even if you didn't like Cuphead initially. And then, Phasmophobia. You probably couldn't tell that's what this was, because for some reason it cut off the logo that's supposed to be at the top of this picture. I included this specifically because I played it with Saturn for Halloween this year. And I just want to talk about how they destroyed my favorite game. No. So, the reason I liked Phasmophobia when it initially came out was because there was challenge, definitely. There was a learning curve to it, like the original patch of Phasmophobia. Original few patches, I guess. But it didn't feel like impossible. And it was glitchy, but in ways that were fun, you know? Like, oh, I got the ghost stuck, and now I get to, like, have this experience of the ghost being stuck. Sometimes the ghost would do some bullshit and walk through a door and kill you, even though it shouldn't have been able to. That's still... I talked about this with Saturn, I think, on stream. Or maybe it was after the stream. But the thing that made the game fun before was that it wasn't really that scary, but you were never safe. So it still felt scary. The ghost could just do some random bullshit and kill you. And so you never felt like, I am perfectly in control of the situation. And obviously... that's probably not the intention of the developers. But that's personally why I had a really fun time with the game. Because it was a horror-esque game that's horror came from unpredictability, which is, you know, fun. Especially when you've got a team to back you up. So even when you die, it's not over, right? It also makes it very fun with friends because, you know, you got people raging out over being killed when they really shouldn't have. And then the rest of the group gets to laugh at their mangled corpse, you know? That's like twisted up unnaturally. And again, the game felt doable. Like none of the evidence felt impossible to get, and everything felt pretty good. But you see, this developer gave in to what I like to call the ROM hack experience, okay? Where, because you're listening to the fan base of a game, and you're hearing from the people who are the most adept at that game, you tune the difficulty of the game for those people instead of a general audience, right? And for ROM hacks, sometimes that's fine. Like Kaizo ROM hacks, you know what you're getting into when you see the word Kaizo. It's like, okay, this is going to be really hard. But this was something that really killed my excitement for Pokemon ROM hacks back in the day, which is like everything has to be super hard because, oh, Pokemon games are so easy. You know? When like the older ones, they can still be challenging due to essentially poor level scaling. And, you know, when I'm just trying to sit back and play a ROM hack and, like, see the new Pokemon and be like, wow, that's a cool idea for a Pokemon. The last thing I want is to have to do a battle 6 times because the person's using, you know... What was the thing that happened in Crystal Clear? The guy had, like, 5 Destiny Bond Ghost-type Pokemon and then a Gengar that was super fast to kill your last Pokemon. I think it was Morty. Like, that's just not fun. Like, oh, it's hard, but like... Ugh. And Phasmophobia kind of feels like that to me now. They've added a ton of more ghosts, which means it is really hard to guess the correct one now because there's so many different ones. And one of them is a mimic that pretends to be another ghost. They've added more evidence, and it's harder to get evidence now from the stuff that used to work. Like the temperature gun got nerfed to hell, where like now it's really hard to find the ghost room, which is like where the ghost does all its stuff and you can gather evidence. And I don't really like that because half the fun of the game is interacting with the ghost. So if you never find the ghost room, then you're just not having fun. And the other thing is they drastically changed the hiding system. So like when the ghost goes into hunting mode and is trying to kill you because you pissed it off too much. In the version of Phasmophobia I originally was playing and enjoying, you could close a door on a ghost and hide in a corner and you'd be all right as long as you didn't talk, right? Because the ghost could hear you. Like, well, it couldn't literally hear you, but it knew where noises were. So now the ghosts can open doors and you have to hide in closets or lockers, right? And you have to hold the door closed because they can open doors. I just... Why? I get there were people who were like gaming the system and making it so that, you know, they were essentially like cheesing the ghosts by, you know, having hiding spots figured out and stuff in every map. But I don't think it's fair to punish people for figuring out the game by now making the game harder just because there were some people who got good at it. You know, that's my opinion. Instead of adding new content, the game essentially just became the same, but now more confusing. And that's just as someone who played the game a lot when it originally came out and went back to it now after a bunch of updates, and it feels like bullshit, but not in the fun way. You know? Specifically, when I was playing with Saturn, we didn't get all 3 pieces of evidence one time. And I think even though we weren't like the most adept at the game, I do think you should at least have the game be playable for people trying to get into the game for the first time, you know? I don't know. It just didn't feel good. We weren't even playing on like the giant new maps or anything. We were just playing on houses that normally at the game before would have been easy. But not anymore. We weren't even playing on like super hard mode. We were playing on normal. I don't know. It just feels like the mechanics of the game have shifted so fundamentally. It's not even the same game anymore. And so I don't like playing it. Oh my god. This is just after the when I talked about the Owl House in the animation tier list, and an ad popped up that said, "Are you a lesbian?" It's like, oh, you put the Owl House in a quiz? Surely we must present you all of these. I wonder what these quizzes are even like. Maybe someday I'll have to look into those. Because I'm not myself. I know, it's so sad. But I bet you these quizzes are not good. I bet you they're not. It's going to be like, do you like rainbows? Then, yeah, you're gay. Yeah. Anyway, that's all. Ugh. It's been a year, hasn't it, folks? I'm looking forward to next year. I don't know what the hell I'm going to be playing, other than Your Turn to Die. It's like the only thing I know for sure. So if you've got any games you want to recommend that are kind of Danganronpa-esque or a Danganronpa fan game, because, you know, I tried playing some different stuff this year. People like Danganronpa, all right? They're not here for Pokemon. So, you know, let me know what you'd want to see. I'd be interested to see. That was a pretty poor sentence structure, but you know what? We'll go with it. The biggest thing I can say is that Eden's Garden has made me want more good Danganronpa content. I feel like I kind of maybe got burnt out on it after Redemption and Draw back to back, where it was okay. So find me something good that's complete, and I will be smiling all day long. All right. Enough. I'm saying stupid stuff because I've been recording too long. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. And here's to another year of YouTube. All right. See you then.